Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one, we are doing another little out and about video. So today I am in Gdańsk in the north of Poland, which so far seems like a very beautiful city actually. I've had a little walk around but still need to go and explore a little bit more. But from what I have seen, there are 3 brewpubs here that we can check out. So the first of these is behind me. This is Piwnica Rajców, if I've pronounced that correctly. Probably not, because Polish is a very, very difficult language, so I will apologise in advance if there's any bad Polish pronunciations over these videos. But yeah, quite excited to go in and try some Polish beer. This is my 3rd time in Poland, so I know that the Polish craft beer is very good, but to come and check out some little Polish brew pubs I think should be quite exciting. So let's get cracking and have a little look at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah guys, this is the entrance to the brewery right here, Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, you can see it's kind of in the basement of this church or hall. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but we're actually right in the middle of the Długa just now, which is the kind of main old street in Gdańsk. You can see it's absolutely lovely, I have to say. So yeah, pretty awesome. But let's go in and we'll have a little look at the brew pub itself. Let's do this. So yeah guys, just to let you have a little look at this place, we'll go in and have a wee walk around as we always do. So as you can see, they've got a little bit out here that you can kind of sit in and enjoy a beer in the square. We might do that a little bit later on. But yeah, really nice entrance here, as I say, in the basement of this lovely old building. But you've got a menu when you come up. We'll look at that later though. But yeah, as you come down here, you definitely can see the kind of German influence. Of course, this city used to be known as Danzig and was part of Germany for a very long time. And you can see here they've got this little room very close to the entrance, which is, you know, where you would just come after work, kind of stand with your friends and have a beer. You know, so this is one of the things here, but you've also got the bigger kind of Keller as well. So this room isn't open at the moment. I'm here very early in the day, but you can see they've got this lovely kind of big room here that you can look at as well. So yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, this is closed. I don't think I'm supposed to really be in here, but we'll be a bit sneaky and see. They've obviously had some kind of big convention or a big presentation here, but it looks pretty cool actually. There you can definitely see a little bit of kind of old school German and Polish influence there. But anyway, we'll go into the main kind of pub now and have a little bit of a look. So let's do this. So yeah, you come in here and it is very nice. You can see they also have this self-service part, which is kind of cool. So as you can see on tap, you've got the wit beer, then you've got Windows, then the black IPA, the porter, Baltic porter, the cold IPA, and also the lager. So yeah, self-service stuff. But yeah, as you can see, they've got the screens for when the football and things are on. You've got some Weirmann malt bags. And yeah, I've been sitting just over there filming my reviews, been chatting to this man here. And yeah, you come in here and you have the main bar, which is nice. So you can see they've got all their fermentation tanks here, which are really very, very nice. You've got the bar. You can see some of the old school kind of copper things up there, which are very cool. This is nice. So yeah, really nice little brew pub, I have to say. They've also got this room through here, which I think is where we just were. You can see that. That's just where we just were. But yeah, I think it's time to go back and just have a little look at my beers. So yeah, just over there. Alright guys, so this is the little tasting set you can get here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, 6 different beers, Looks as if it's about 150 milliliters, something like that. So yeah, looks pretty good. So you can see you get this card that tells you a little bit about the beer, both in Polish and English. We're not even going to try and read the Polish, to be honest with you. It's a very difficult language. But yeah, you can see first off, we have a wit beer, which you don't find too often. We've got a Pilsner, then we've got a black IPA. Then over here, we've got the Baltic Porter, which I have to say I'm very much looking forward to. It says on the card here this one is an American Pale Ale, but apparently this isn't the case. This is a cold IPA. I've never tried a Polish cold IPA before, but like I said to you, the Poles are very good at the American-style craft beer, so I've got high hopes for this one. Very curious to try it. I haven't tried too many cold IPAs, actually. And then the last one that we have is just the regular Helles-type lager. So yeah, these should be quite interesting to try. Let's have a little look at the first one then. Alright guys, well, time for our first tasting then here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, the first beer we're going to have a little look at is the lager. So we're actually going to go to number 6 on the list first. I just think that's the best place to start. So yeah, this one is, by the looks of it, like a Helles, it's like almost the equivalent of a German Helles or a Czech Svetli perhaps. But it comes in at 5% ABV. When this one poured, it came with about a 3/4 finger of a frothy, perfect white head. But you can see it's got a lovely little bit of kind of natural haze to it, steady stream of carbonation. It looks very, very nice. I think I told you a little bit of a lie earlier on. I said these were about 200 millilitres. It says 1/8 of a litre, so yeah, 125 millilitres, this one. But that should be enough to have a little taste of this beer and talk about it. But yeah, in terms of what you'd expect from a kind of Helles lager or Czech Svetli Lecak type thing, this one is pretty much as you would expect in terms of appearance. So let's have a wee look at the aroma and see what this beer has in store for us. Oh yeah, straight away, very, very nice. Right away with this beer, you get a lovely soft kind of fresh white bready bread crust on the backbone. Fluffy white bread in there too. There is a little bit of sweetness to this beer for sure. It has got a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character on the malt base. A few little kind of crackery elements coming out of it as well. So yeah, you've got a good little bit of sweetness and crackery character in there, which is nice. And yeah, I think it goes together really quite well. Yeah, the malty side of this beer, it's very straightforward, but it's kind of what you'd expect. Lovely little bit of bread crust, sweet white bread, little bit of kind of sweeter biscuity note out of the beer as well. And then yeah, you've got the hoppy side of things. So on the hoppy side of the beer, I'd be very curious to know whether they are using Polish hops in this one, because there are quite a few different varieties of Polish hops. I need to learn a little bit more about them, to be honest with you. But they come across, the green side of this beer, there's a little bit of that smooth earthiness. You've got a little bit of a slight herbal character to it as well. You've also got a wee touch of a kind of floral thing going on with the beer too. A little bit of lighter grassy character, which is nice. So yeah, kind of strikes me as being, it's quite bright in terms of its hoppy character, like the German noble hops. Not quite as spicy as you'll get from the Czech Sats, Jatets and things like that. So yeah, hoppy side of the beer smells quite nice. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. You've got a little bit of a very kind of light apricot. You've got a wee bit of a kind of, yeah, you've got a wee bit of that sultana type thing as well. You know, dry white green grapes. And yeah, you've got a little bit of like a, you know, an oily pear or maybe there's not really any kind of fresh green apple to this one, which you can sometimes get from the kind of Helles or Svetli type styles of lager. But it smells very nice, this one, as I say. So, nothing untoward about this beer, aroma-wise. Let's have a taste of it and see how we go. So this one is simply called Lager, 5% ABV. We'll have a wee taste of this. Oh yeah, that is a really nice, just smooth, drinkable lager beer, this one. It's, yeah, I love beers like this, you know. Often drink these when I go to Germany and Czech and things, and of course because of the history of Poland, they do have quite a significant brewing culture as well. So yeah, it's not a surprise. This is a solid kind of Brauhaus type lager beer, this one, but yeah, not surprised that it's pretty damn good. very underrated style of beer, in my opinion. It's all about the IPAs and imperial stouts and stuff these days, but the lagers can be very, very nice. So, in terms of the flavour profile of this one then, middle of your palate, you've got a nice kind of backbone of like a fresh white bready bread crust. On top of that, you're getting, you know, the fluffier white bread, and the further you go into the aftertaste with it, you do start to get a little bit of sweetness out of the bready side of the beer too. Definitely some little crackery elements to the beer too, particularly at the front of that middle third of the palate. And on top of that, there's a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character. Like in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a wee touch of a kind of maybe straight up caramel, slightly sweet honey kind of thing. But then, yeah, as you go out to the edge of your palate, it's more about the kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes, definitely. On the back third of your palate, you can feel you've got similar things there, but the bread crust is a little bit drier, the white bready layer is a little bit taller and more airy, and you're getting a wee bit of a more yeasty character out of the beer as well. There's a little touch of kind of honeycomb to that, but definitely flavour on the back third of the palate is taller, and as you come into the middle, it's a wee bit more kind of condensed down and squashed together, so that's quite nice. But yeah, I think that covers the malty, yeasty side of the beer. Let's look at the hoppy side of things. Yeah, it's kind of as I expected from the aroma, to be honest with you. In the back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of smooth earthiness in there. As you come further forward, it gives you a little bit more floral character, and round the front curve of the tongue, it's a wee bit lighter and more grassy. There's a little touch of kind of zestiness to the grassy side of this beer, which I do quite like. So yeah, quite bright. I suspect German noble hops in this one, if it isn't Polish hops that they've used. Like I say, I need to learn a little bit more about the Polish varieties of hops, because there are some very good ones from what I've heard. But yeah, on the front third of your palate then, the fruity side of the beer, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of bread crusty note in there, smooth white bread, then the oily bubble where the fruits come out on top of that. And this again, it's quite similar to what we picked up in the aroma. So yeah, back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of sultana, you know, dry white green grapey note. As you move further forward, it gives you a little bit of a more oily pear. There's maybe a little tiny touch of dry apricot in there, and as you reach the front of that front third of your palate, it gives you a little bit more of a it does give you a little bit more of a kind of like fresh green apple or something like that. But like I say, it's mainly, for me, it's mainly the dry apricot and the kind of sultana type flavour that lingers into the aftertaste with this one. But a very nice sort of light lager beer, this one. So it's pretty damn good. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, light-bodied, quite crisp carbonation, but still, because this is a kind of Helles type lager rather than the Pilsner, it's not madly, it's not really bitter, it's not really dry, it's kind of more smooth, this one, but it does give you a little touch of dryness in the aftertaste. But you've got a wee bit of a kind of, you've got a little bit of a kind of oily, fruity character to this one. As I say, the malt base is nice and smooth. You've got a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness as well. The hoppy character is quite nice. Yeah, really solid kind of Helles or Svetli type lager beer, this one. So yeah, I think that rounds off tasting number one. So this beer was simply just called lager, 5% ABV here at Piwnica Rajców. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. Catch you guys in a second with the next tasting. Alright guys, well, let's have a little look at the menu here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, as you can see when you open this one up, you've got your QR code and all this, but let's have a wee look at the food that we have here. So one thing to point out when we're talking about prices here, 5 zlotys is about €1. So, you know, and yeah, €1 is about equivalent to $1 these days. You know, the pound is slightly stronger, but anyway, that gives you a rough idea of the price. So 45 zlotys, that's roughly about €9 for the first thing. But yeah, we have beef tartare. We have this thing here, cold cut meats with horseradish and herb butter. Pickled onions and herring. I have to say, fish is not my thing, but yeah, oyster mushrooms and all this kind of stuff. A few different soups. There were a few things down here that kind of caught my eye. This thing, the sour rye soup bread, I thought that sounded very good. But they've got fish soup, beef and poultry broth, a soup of the day, They've got a pork knuckle as well. They've got veal schnitzel, which also would be very, very nice, but I'd rather have something a wee bit more Polish perhaps. Yeah, chicken fillet, slow baked pork, beef burger, vegetarian burger, roasted duck, that would be quite nice actually, beef tenderloin steak. So yeah, you can see these, you're talking between, you know, 8 to 12 euros for a meal, which is, you know, not bad. Although remember, I come from the Swedish and Danish price points, so yeah, that's this. But you can see the prices in Poland, of course, have gradually gone up over the years as the economy's developed, and of course we've got a lot of inflation and stuff just now as well. But yeah, you can see Atlantic cod in there as well. They've got fish and chips, some pierogi, which I probably will be having, have to say that. A few different pastas in there. Pumpkin gnocchi, that sounds quite interesting. Black tagliatelle, a few salads and things like this, and a few things for beer snacks as well. It seems this is a little bit of a platter for beer snacks. But as I say, you can see the prices there. Divide by 5 to get the euro and a rough idea of what dollars and sterling would be. Some desserts as well. Chocolate fondant, white chocolate mousse. I might need to try that because that caught my eye as well, I have to say. They've got pizzas in here, although I would rather try something a little bit more Polish, but you guys know that I absolutely love pizza. Yeah, a few little extras in there as well. Some potato dumplings and homemade fries and all these kind of things. But yeah, over here you've got the kids menu as well. So yeah, about 3-4 euros for your kids to have something. Chicken nuggets, penny pasta, cheeseburgers, ice cream, soups, stuff like this. Then yeah, you've got a few different drinks and stuff here. Cola Zero, a few Polish things that I've not really heard of before. But yeah, a few different coffees from Costa. And then of course you get the interesting part of the menu. So this is the beer menu, like I say. So yeah, you've got a few different sizes here. So you can get, for 15 zlotys, you can get a 0.3 litre. For 19, you can get a 0.5. And then for 34, you can get a 1 litre. So yeah, that's about 3 euros, 4 euros, and then 7, actually. So the bigger you buy, the cheaper it gets. The Baltic Porter is a little bit more expensive, maybe just higher in alcohol, something like that. But yeah, you can see there's a few different styles here. So at the moment, they've got a wit beer, the Baltic Porter, the Pilsner, the Black IPA, the Cold IPA, the Lager, which I say is a Helles Lager. They're saying it's their take on a Bavarian Helles. But yeah, a nice selection of beers. Just for reference, I'm actually filming this for you in the middle of February 2023. So you might find that this beer list changes a little bit otherwise. They've got a few cocktails and stuff like this too. And the cocktails, some of them seem quite interesting. To say, I do enjoy a cocktail every so often, but of course I tend to drink beer more than anything else. And you've got all your different types of Żubrówka, you know, Polish vodka. Lethal stuff, but can be quite good. You've got a few single malts in there, Glenfiddich, tequila, vermouth, cognac, liqueurs, all these kind of things, rums and gins, and a few other whiskies in there as well. Some bourbons, obviously. So yeah, quite a substantial menu, I have to say. Quite impressive. You can also see you can buy the bottles to take away. I don't know, I might get one of these to take away, but I don't know if I've really got room to take it back home to Sweden, but we'll see. But yeah, that is a little quick look at the menu here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, we're going to order some food in a little bit. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 2 then. So the second beer we're going to have a little look at is the Pilsner. So this one is a little bit lower in ABV than the lager was. This one comes in at 4.5% ABV. But yeah, I thought we would go with this one second because usually the Pilsner is, of course, a little bit more bitter and dry and things like that. So yeah, it's usually best to work up the scale in terms of IBUs. You start off with the least bitter one and, go along the line that way. But yeah, as you can see, when this beer poured It came out with about a finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of slightly creamy coloured head rather than perfect white. You can see this one once again has that lovely kind of pale golden straw colour to it. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining the EBC rating. Length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker beer. Adjuncts and barrel aging can affect it too, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to pilsners, of course, but or any type of lager really. It's not often that you barrel age a lager, but yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Nothing overly surprising about this beer. Nice little bit of natural haze and carbonation. So yeah, aroma time. Yeah, I will say this one, it doesn't smell madly different from the lager. Like, you can smell, I think probably a lot of the base malts that they used in the lager have also been used in this one, but you can certainly smell that it's a bit more dry and a bit more bitter than the Helles was. I keep saying Helles, it is simply just called lager. But yeah, you can certainly smell that, but that's what you'd expect of a Pilsner. A Pilsner is a more bitter and drier type of lager beer. This one, of course, originates from the city of Pilsen in the Czech Republic, but back then it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So yeah, for me, again, lovely little bit of fresh white bready bread crust, but the sweeter white bready character in here is also very, very nice. You can certainly smell that. There's a good little bit of that biscuity character that I was talking about in the Helles too, but at the back of the nose, you can smell a little bit of that more dry Pilsner malt character out of this one. You certainly get that little bit of dryness and crispness in the back of the nose. But yeah, good little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, a little touch of honeycomb in the middle of the nose too. And yeah, the way that goes together is really quite nice, actually. Yeah, very smooth, and one of the more bready Pilsners I think I've come across. But this is one of the key things to remember. For me, the German Pilsner is a lot drier and a lot more crisp than, for example, the Czech type Pilsens. So the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more yeasty and bready and things like that. So maybe this one is going to be more in line with the Czech style rather than the German variant. But yeah, smells very nice. On the hoppy side of things, you've got a little bit of that smooth earthiness in there, a little touch of herbal character, but quite a bright floral note and a little bit of a grassy, zesty character to it as well. So a very nice, I have to say, in that sense, a very nice smelling Pilsner. The fruity side is very similar to what we had from the Helles too. There's a little bit of that kind of sweet, kind of slightly dry sultana type quality, the dry white green grapes. You've also got a little bit of the you do also have a little bit of that oily pear, and for me the oily pear is a little bit more prominent in this one. And then there's a little bit of an almost kind of gooseberry type character in this beer as well. So yeah, sounds quite good. The brewers are actually just over there hosing some stuff down, so you might hear them doing their work. Maybe need to see if we can get a beer with them in the video later. But yeah, the Pilsner, I have to say, does smell very nice. A bit more hoppy, and as I say, a little bit more crisp, generally speaking, in the aroma. But let's taste this one. So yeah, Slange, Skål. Cheers, or to the same Poland, Nastrovia. Oh yeah. Now, I will say, while the aroma of this one is quite similar to the lager, the flavour is quite different. This one's got a lot more bitterness to it and a lot more kind of crisp, dry character. It's still a very, very nice beer, this one. I would say maybe I should have got the 0.3 litres or something like that, because these beers, they are nice, but I think I've maybe just got a little bit too small. They're just a little bit too small for me. But yeah, this is a nice Pilsner, quite dry and quite crisp for sure, but at the same time you've got that more kind of Czech, bready, yeasty sort of thing. So this one actually finds a kind of good middle ground to show you everything that you can get from this style. So yeah, let's look at the profile again. So yeah, middle of your palate, you can feel the backbone of this beer is a little bit more kind of fresh, white bread crust. On top of that, you get the fluffy white bread in there, but it feels a little bit more dense in its bready character, this one for me. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, you're getting a wee bit of the kind of, there's a little bit of a kind of Werther's original butter candy type thing in the dead centre of the palate, but toward the back of that middle third of your tongue,
you're definitely getting a bit more of the dry, crisp Pilsner malt out of this one, which is really quite nice. There's a little touch of an almost woody flavour to this one too, which I do quite like. But on the back third of the palate, you've got much the same, but the bread crust in the base is a little bit drier, the fluffy white bready layer is a wee bit taller, and then you have a little bit more of that kind of dry Pilsner malt sitting on top. You do get quite a lot of dryness out of this beer on the back of the palate, and above everything else, you have a little bit of a more you've got a little bit the more yeasty character, so a light kind of farmhousey bread with a wee touch of honeycomb around it for me. That is quite nice. Yeah, this beer does get a little bit sweeter the more that you drink of it as well. But on the hoppy side of things, I think this is definitely it's either got a little bit more early edition hopping, a little bit more bittering hops added into it, or it's a different hop variety with a slightly higher alpha acid. But in the back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of an earthy note in there for sure, and as you come further forward, you get quite a lot of floral character right away, and you can feel that bitterness when you reach the front corners of the tongue. Around the front curve of the palate, definitely lighter and more grassy and zesty, but still a good bit more bitterness to this beer, which you would expect of the Pilsner style. Front third of your palate then, again, you've got base of little bit of bread crust, you've got a little bit of a kind of white bread in there as well, then you've got the fruits sitting above that. So the fruity profile is quite similar to the Helles. It's got a little bit of that kind of, sultana type quality, the dry white green grapey notes. You've also got a little bit of a kind of apricot-y character in there as well, and then a wee bit of an oily pear. So yeah, and I do get a wee bit more kind of lemon limey note on the front tip of the tongue, just behind the grassy notes. But yeah, this one, very, very nice Pilsner beer. It kind of finds a middle ground for me between the German ones that are a bit drier and more crisp, and the more kind of yeasty, and bready Czech versions of this style. So yeah, I think they've done a nice job of that. Very, very nice Pilsner. We need to try a few more kind of Brauhaus type Pilsners here when we're in Poland. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. That was the Pilsner, 4.5% ABV. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this. Catch you in a second with another one.
So yeah guys, as you might have seen earlier, they've got this lovely kind of copper brew kit here, which looks very, very nice. It's obviously very well polished and things. They put a lot of work into this, but yeah, quite cool. They let me come up and just have a little sneak peek of this. But it says on their website that in these fermentation tanks over here, which you can see on the other side of the bar, they can store about 34,000 litres of beer at any one time, and they've done about 25 different kinds of beer apparently as well, so that is quite cool. There you can see the other side of the brew kit. That is very, very nice.
Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 3 then here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, the third beer we're going to have a look at is a style that I didn't think I'd really find in Poland, to be honest with you, but on the other hand it kind of makes sense. So the next one is the wit beer. So this comes in at 4% ABV. Wit beer is of course a Belgian beer style. So yeah, it doesn't, in some sense, it surprises me to find a Belgian style wit beer here. But at the same time, wheat beers are fairly popular in Poland. I mean, you've got the Grodzicki, which is basically a smoked wheat beer, traditional Polish beer style. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me in that sense that they like wheaty stuff. So yeah, this one comes in at 4%, like I say. They've added some orange peel and coriander into this one, which is, fairly kind of common for this particular style. So yeah, as you can see, when this beer poured, again, it had about a finger of a frothy, kind of almost perfect white head, but slightly cream coloured, I would say. There are one or two big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass for this one, and the carbonation is just steadily going up toward the bottom of the head. But again, you've got that lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. But with the addition of the wheat and the adjuncts, you can, of course, see an additional bit of haze to this one. So yeah, that is quite nice. But yeah, as I say, lovely pale golden straw colour. Let's take a wee look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. Oh yeah. This is definitely a very kind of just smooth, big, aromatic sort of thing. Yeah, I do like how this goes together actually. been a long time since I had a Belgian wit beer, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, aroma-wise, that is quite nice. So, where do we start with this one? You can smell the kind of soft, just white bready, wheat malty backbone in this one. There's a little bit of bread crust to it, but it takes a bit of a back seat. It's mainly about the kind of fluffy, just wheaty white bread in this one. Within that, you've got a little bit more of a kind of yeasty character too. So you get a little bit of the kind of clovey spice. You can smell the coriander in there as well. There's a little bit of a kind of bubblegummy candy type note to this beer as well, which is fairly common in wit beers and German Hefeweizens. So yeah, a little bit of that bubblegummy sweet note to this one too. There is a little touch of like a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing to it. And yeah, the way it goes together is very, very nice in that sense. Yeah. You definitely get a lot of citrusy character from the orange peel. Yeah, a lot of really nice kind of citrusy orange peel from this beer. At the back of the nose, you do get a little bit more of a woody and kind of peppery note out of this beer the more that you smell of it too. It's got a little bit of dryness. On the hoppy side of things, it's quite, for me, there's a little bit of smooth earthiness, a little bit of herbal character, but also quite a bit of a bright grassy note to this one too. So yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is really quite nice. On the fruity side of things, for me, it's got a soft sort of lemony character to it, a sort of lemon limey note. There's a little bit of apricot and things too. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is also very, very nice. Is there anything more we really need to say about the aroma of this one? I don't think so. So let's have a wee taste of this and see what it's all about. The wit beer, 4% ABV. Let's do this. Oh yeah, that's nice. Very, very smooth, but also very wet and kind of fresh at the same time. I like that. As I say, not often that I come across wit beers, but I think this is very, very nice. Yeah. So, on the in the middle of your palate, then you've got a little bit of that fresh white bready bread crust, but then above that you've got this lovely wet but very smooth white bready character coming out of the beer. And yeah, that's nice. On top of the white bread, you've got a little bit of that kind of bubblegum kind of sweetness. But toward the back, on the back third of your palate, you can feel you've got the bread crusty dryness there. The white bready layer is a little bit taller and more airy. And within that, you've got the kind of coriander. You do have a little bit more of the kind of coriander spice to this one too. Above all of that too, you also get a little bit of a more kind of farmhousey, bready character, a little bit of honeycomb and a little bit of woodiness and things. So definitely, yeah, within the wit beer, you can feel the flavour on the back third of the palate is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, that is nice. I do like this one. Yeah, very, very nicely done wit beer, I have to say, and a style that I don't find all that often, which is a shame. So maybe I don't quite appreciate it as much as a style. Maybe I don't appreciate it as much as I should. But this is a well done beer. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, but very, very smooth. As you come further forward, it gets a little bit more herbal. You can feel a little touch of floral character in the front corners of the palate. Then round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is just a little bit lighter and more grassy. So. Yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is very, very nice in that sense. Yeah, on the fruity side of things, the orange peel in this one is quite interesting because you can feel the orange peel just pushing back a little bit of the green character of the hops with this one. So yeah, as obviously when you add fruit into beer as an adjunct, it always pushes back against the hoppy side of things a little bit. But on the front third of your palate, you've got the white bread in the base, then you've got a little bit of a more, you have got a little bit of a more, kind of, you do have a little bit of a more kind of apricot-y note to this one. You've also got a little bit of a more, yeah, it's a little bit of apricot in there, there's a little bit of the sultana, but yeah, the orange peel I think really kind of comes out of this one, and the orange peel also sits on top of that front third of your palate too. But yeah, mouthfeel wise for me, yeah, mouthfeel wise, this one's definitely kind of bottom end of mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, very smooth beer generally speaking. Low in IBUs, probably about, yeah, what, 15-ish? IBU, something like that. Smooth and slightly sweet malt base, little bit of spice to it, and you've got a nice little bit of juicy fruity character. But this gives you everything you'd want from a Belgian style wit beer. I think this is very nice, so it gets a thumbs up from me. But yeah, I think that's the end of tasting number 3. Still another 3 to go, so catch you guys in a little second with something else. Cheers. So yeah guys, one of the pieces of my food just arrived, so this is kind of cool actually. This is this thing here, which is the jour de chlebi, if I've pronounced that correctly, probably not, but sour rye soup in bread. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. So as you can see, the soup's inside there. This I think is going to be very, very nice. So we'll have a wee taste of this and see what it's all about. This should be quite cool. So yeah guys, as you saw, I just ordered this thing. This should be really quite interesting. I'm curious to see what the bread on its own is like, but I mean, just look inside of it. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that, but the soup is just sitting, stewing away in here. Looks very nice, a mix of egg and meat and all sorts of stuff, but let's try the raw bread on its own. I tried one of these before in the Czech Republic, but obviously the Polish one will be a bit different. Oh yeah, that is nice. Ooh, yeah. So yeah, like quite a... The bread has a wee bit of saltiness to it, which is good. And we've got this little kind of more dense bready part in the middle, which I'm curious to try. A bit more like a kind of raw bread crust, almost a little bit pretzel-y. That part of the bread that I've just eaten there. That is nice, as I say, a little bit of saltiness to it. Let's have a wee look at the broth. So you can see, don't know if you can really see that through the spoon, but lovely. Oh, that is quite nice. You've got whole kind of chunks of like boiled egg and stuff in here. This is going to be nice. I'm just going to mash it up a wee bit because I'm a bit particular with my eggs. I like my eggs to be more a fan of scrambled eggs than boiled eggs or anything else. I never used to like eggs at all, but still, let's mix it up and actually try a wee bit of the thing with the meat and with the eggs. This is good. Oh yeah, that is nice. The eggs just kind of add a wee bit of smoothness in there. You've got the meatiness stuff as well. Really just quite hearty, to be honest with you. Again, very, very good beer food. So yeah, it's got a little bit of creaminess to it, but it really is more like a kind of broth soup, this one. As I say, I wanted to have one of these again for quite a long time. I was looking forward to this when I booked my flight to Poland. And this certainly hasn't disappointed. So yeah, 2 different kinds of Polish food here. And they are very nice, actually. So, yeah, this is very, very good. Definitely have a go at one of these. I just wish I could pronounce the name properly. But yeah, certainly not disappointed with this in the slightest. Yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about my soup-filled rye bread. Really enjoyed this. So catch you guys in a second with another beer review. Ciao. Alright guys, well, time for tasting number 4 then, and we're going to go to something a wee bit more American this time. So, beer number 4 is going to be the Cold IPA, which the waitress was telling me is her favourite of the beers just now. But yeah, this one comes in at 6.5% ABV. When this beer poured, it had a finger of a frothy, I would have said kind of more cream ivory coloured head rather than perfect white. But yeah, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. Once again, you can see this one is lovely and crystal clear. Good stream of carbonation just going up toward the top of the glass there. But it does look very, very nice. So the basic idea of a cold IPA, I haven't reviewed too many of these on the channel, maybe just 2 or 3, but the basic idea of a cold IPA is that it's an IPA that is fermented for a longer time at a lower temperature. So yeah, it's basically an IPA that is aged and fermented in using the lager technique. Basically, that's probably a good way to describe it. So yeah, this is the first Polish example of this style that I'm trying. But like I said, I know the Poles are very good when it comes to the American style craft beers. So I've got high hopes for this. But in terms of appearance, there's nothing really surprising about this one. When you consider what style it is. These beers can also be a little bit hazy, but I think this one, by the looks of it, has probably been filtered. So anyway, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this beer and see what it has in store for us. Oh yeah, that is pretty nice. Now I'm going to say straight away, the aroma of this beer reminds me of some of the old school, like American West Coast type pale ales. That's really what's going on in this one for me. So yeah, aroma wise, I think this beer, it's really nice and oily. It's got that little bit of sweetness in there. You've also got that big deep green component too. This is going to be quite interesting. So on the on the malty side of things, you've got a little bit of bread crusts in there. You've got a little bit of a more kind of sweet, dense, slightly almost brown bready aroma, but there's a good little bit of white bread in there as well. But definitely you've got some straight up sweet caramel, some oily biscuity character as well. Yeah, it is quite nice. It's more definitely a more kind of oily and dense malt base in this one compared to the other 3 beers that we've had so far. But then again, remember, those were Helles Lager, Pilsner, and then a Belgian style wit beer. So those are quite different styles to this one. This is more American and more kind of punchy. The other ones are quite drinkable and sessionable, I would say. So yeah, I think that covers it. A little bit of sweet caramel, a little bit of biscuit, and then the more dense bready characteristics coming out of the beer. So yeah, I like that. On the hoppy side of things, you've got a nice little bit of yeah, on the hoppy side of things with this beer, it's quite nice. I'd be curious to know what exactly they've done with this one, because remember, there are 3 different types of hopping. Early edition hopping in the first hour of the wort boil, that gives you mainly bitterness. Late edition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, that gives you a little bit of bitterness but mainly flavour and aroma. And then dry hopping after the wort boil is complete, that gives you all flavour and aroma. So when it comes to the aroma of these beers, normally if you've got a deeper, danker aroma, that's an indicator of early edition hopping. If you have mainly a bright floral, a kind of brighter green component, then that's usually an indicator of late edition and dry hopping. So for me, this beer is showing a little bit of both. I wouldn't be surprised if this is hopped in the more kind of West Coast IPA style. You've got a little bit of that deeper, more dank green component in there, but lovely kind of bright floral character, and also a little bit of a kind of more grassy, also a little bit of a more grassy kind of zestiness at the front there too. So I do like how that goes together. It's very, very nice. On the fruity side of things, you've got a more kind of you do have a more kind of oily fruity character to it as well. So yeah, the way that goes together is nice. For me, there's a good little bit of gooseberry to this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this has got Hallertau Blanc or Nelson Sauvin in it. There's just something distinctive about that white green grapey type note out of it. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. Yeah, big oily white green grapey kind of notes. There's a little bit of a kind of passion fruity mango character in there as well, but yeah, the way it goes together is pretty nice in that sense. Yeah, I'm just very, very curious to try this one. It really strikes me as if it's got Hallertau Blanc or Nelson Sauvin or something like that in it. There's a lot of gooseberry for me. Could be, you know, a bit of Slovenian Styrian Wolf wouldn't surprise me with this beer either. But yeah, a little bit of tropical fruit in there, mango, but lots of gooseberry and things. Lovely aroma to this beer. Let's get stuck into this one though and see what it's all about. This one is simply called Cold IPA, 6.5% ABV. Slange, skål, cheers, na zdrowie. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. That is really nicely done. Yeah, this is good. Lovely, as I say, quite an oily and fruity beer, this one, and you do get the nice hoppy bitterness. This is definitely more, obviously, of an American type quality. It reminds me a little bit more. The cold IPAs always remind me of the old school West Coast type pale ales, but they're just a little bit stronger, obviously. They are the full IPA strength. Remember, the technical difference between a pale ale and an IPA is the hop to malt ratio. Essentially, they're a family of beers. You've got double IPAs and barley wines in there as well. They're all related via the hop to malt ratio. But yeah, middle of your palate with this one. Good little bit of kind of grainy bread crust in there for sure. Above that, you get quite a dense, like slightly sweet brown bready character for me. Then there's the white bread, but then you've got a lot of kind of sweeter, kind of brown, like kind of sugary notes on top of that. So in the dead centre of your palate, you get this really strong kind of concentrated mix of caramel and biscuity character there. And as you move further out toward the edges of your palate, you get that more kind of straight up grainy McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of the beer. So that is very, very nice. So yeah, there's a lot of really nice character in the malt base here. On the back third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. You can feel it's a bit drier then. The bready layers are a little bit taller, of course, and then above all of that, you're starting to get some of the kind of yeasty character. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is really quite nice in that sense. Yeah, definitely back third of the palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the tongue, it condenses down a wee bit. But yeah, malty side of this beer is very nice, very easy drinking, the cold IPA as well. So on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gives you a good little bit of a floral aromatic sort of thing. And you can feel there's a little bit of dank character to this one, so I do suspect there's a bit of early addition hopping in here, so nice little bit of a brighter floral and more spicy character. Round the front curve of the tongue, of course, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is really nice in that sense. Front third of your palate and the fruity side of the beer, let's have a wee look at that. Yeah, the fruity side is also very, very nice. At the back of that, the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of bread crust, smooth white bread. Then at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of passion fruity sort of thing in there, like a bit of an oily passion fruit. As you move further forward from that, there's a teeny bit of apricot underneath, and there's also a little bit of a kind of more oily mango. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, for me, it's more about, it's kind of got an oily, it's got a kind of white green grapey sort of thing. So it really wouldn't surprise me if this has got Nelson Sauvin in it or German Hallertau Blanc. It's got that kind of white green grapey gooseberry type flavour to it. And as you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue, it's got a little bit of a kind of lemony limey character. So Citra wouldn't surprise me with this one either. I think it's something like that. This could be like a Citra Nelson Sauvin hop combination. This one, that really would not surprise me, or maybe even like Simcoe Hallertau Blanc or something like that. It's something along these lines that's in here. So yeah, I think that works quite well. I mean, lovely kind of oily mouthfeel, this one. Like I say, the cold IPAs often remind me just of old school West Coast pale ales, but lighter in the mouthfeel. So to round off this one then, for me, the mouthfeel of this beer is kind of bottom end to mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got quite a slick, oily mouthfeel to it. IBU-wise, this one feels a little bit more bitter, so maybe 30 to 40 IBUs. The malt base, as you said, is kind of smooth, but it's also got a lot of kind of oily sweetness to it. And you've also got some nice kind of juicy, fruity characters in there as well. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is it's really quite nice. Lovely cold IPA, this one. Might be tempted to get a kind of bigger glass of this before I leave here, because that is really, really nicely done. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this is the cold IPA. We'll go on to something else in just a little second. Cheers.
So yeah guys, came outside just to put another little snapshot in the video, but this thing here, I read a little bit about this. So this is the Arthur's Centre, if you like, or the Arthur's Court. So apparently, going away back to the 14th or 15th century, this was a big meeting place for merchants and stuff like this, and the cellar apparently was always known to provide the merchants that came here with you know, good mead and good wine and good beer and all of this sort of thing. And of course we've got the famous Neptune fountain of Gdańsk here as well. So yeah, this goes back to the times of the Hansa, who of course were the very important traders in the Baltic region. So yeah, very, very cool. It was really interesting to read a little bit about this while I was enjoying my food and my beers and stuff. But yeah, another little bit of history for you about this. It didn't say exactly when the brewery in its modern form opened, but I would have guessed that it would be some time after 1991. But who knows, we'll maybe get one of their beers and do a proper sit-down review and investigate it a little bit more. But like I say, very, very beautiful setting for a brewery. So yeah, I have to say, lovely stuff. Piwnica Rajców.
Alright guys, well, tasting number 5 then here at Piwnica Rajców. So the next beer we're going to have a look at is the Black IPA. So this should be really quite interesting. I've had 1 or 2 Polish Black IPAs before, and like I said, the Poles tend to be very good when it comes to the American styles of craft beer. So yeah, quite enjoy this. It's not a style you come across all that often these days anymore, but it is one that I'm very, very curious to try. So yeah, this is number 3 in the little tasting set that they gave me. And yeah, it comes in at 6% ABV. So you can see that this beer poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of lightly beige coloured head, but you can see it's got this lovely kind of dark ebony rosewood colour to it, almost like Pepsi Max sort of thing. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. So yeah, do like how this goes together, I have to say. Nothing really surprising about this beer in terms of appearance when you consider what style it is, but the Black IPA is in essence, it's basically got a little bit of a stout malt base to it with all the IPA hopping on top. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and just see what it's all about. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is very, very nice. On top of the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely, slightly well-fired bread crusty note. Yeah, so lovely, slightly well-fired bread crust, kind of sweet rye bread on top of that. There's a little bit of a lighter, more kind of wholemeal, brown bready sort of thing to it as well. But yeah, the way that that goes together is really quite nice. Yeah, the malty base is really good. You've got a little bit of toasty brown sugar in there. You've got a little bit more of an oily sweet caramel, but there's also wee elements of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit to it as well, which I think is great. Yeah, it's got, like, some of these black IPAs can be quite, they can be, you know, like really roasty and toasty, but for me, having a good black IPA, it has to have a little bit more balance to the malt base. You do have to have a little bit of that kind of sweet brown bready character, and also a little bit of the kind of more brown sugary type note as well. And this one certainly achieves that in the aroma. Hopefully it has the same in the actual flavour. But on the hoppy side of things, it smells very nice as well. Green component wise, you've got a little bit of a kind of earthy note in there. You've got some nice kind of floral aromaticity as well. Also a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing, and it's a wee bit more zesty too. So yeah, the green component is nice. The fruity side of the beer is really interesting as well. There's something very familiar about this. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of American Simcoe or Amarillo in this one, because it has got a little bit of It has certainly got a little bit of a kind of oily orangey character to it. So that could be Amarillo, it could be Mosaic. So lovely big kind of zesty oily orange. And you've also got that nice little bit of there's a little bit of red fruity character to this one, and also I do also get a little bit of a kind of mango-y, passion fruity type note too. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think is really quite nice. So definitely, yeah, on the fruity side of things, a bit of orange, good little bit of passion fruit and mango for me, but you're also getting the kind of red fruity notes. I really wouldn't be surprised if this has got Simcoe in it. Simcoe, of course, is a very diverse hop, very good when it comes to black IPAs and stuff like this too. So yeah, aroma-wise, this beer gets a thumbs up from me. Let's have a wee taste of this then and see what it's all about. So yeah, 6% black IPA, let's go for it. Sláinte, skål, cheers, na zdravie. Yeah, that's a really nicely done black IPA. Gives you everything you'd want. It gets a bit sweeter the further into the malt base that you go, so that's really quite nice as well. So yeah, this beer does develop a bit more of a sweetness the further into the aftertaste you go with it, but that is a really nicely done and drinkable black IPA. As a style, I wish there was more of these around still. These were quite popular back in maybe 2012, 2013, and I really enjoyed them at the time. One of my favourite ever ones was the black salts and body malts from Toul in Copenhagen in Denmark. But yeah, this is very good. Let's break this down and just describe it for you more in depth then. So the backbone of the beer, middle third of your palate, you've got that lovely roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crisp backbone. It's not too dry, it has got a nice balance to it. Above that, you've got a little bit of a kind of sweeter rye bready character coming out of the beer, and then a wee bit of a wholemeal brown bready note to it as well. So that is really nice. This beer has that kind of sweeter bready depth to it, which I personally quite like in this style. Above that though, you get a layer of a kind of light toasty brown sugar, and in the dead centre of the palate you've got a little bit of that kind of straight up sweet caramel, which is very nice. So yeah, straight up sweet caramel, a little bit of a more roasty toasty brown sugar underneath it as well. It's got a good balance, this beer, between the roastiness, the kind of more savoury bready character, and also the types of the kind of sweetness you get too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together on the malty side of things is really well balanced. On the back third of the palate you get similar, but you can feel the bread crust is a little bit drier. The rye bread is there, the layer's taller, more airy. You've got more of the wholemeal brown bread as well. Flavour is quite similar, but as I say, the whole vibe of the beer is just a little bit more light and airy, and above everything else you get some of the more yeasty characteristics out of the beer. A little bit of a lighter kind of farmhousey, brown bready type thing there with a little bit of honeycomb. So the way that goes together is really quite nice. Yeah, I like that about this beer for sure. The malty and yeasty side of this one is done really nicely. Let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. So back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness in there, definitely, and as you come further forward it gets a little bit herbal, and as you reach the front corners of the palate it's got a little bit more kind of floral aromaticity to it, definitely, and round the front curve of the palate it's a wee bit lighter and more grassy, but the grassy character has a wee bit more oiliness to it, and you get a little touch of dankness out of this beer the later into you go as well, which indicates more of a it indicates a little bit of early edition hopping. As I said earlier, that's going to give you a lot of bitterness. So yeah, the way that this goes together is really, really nice. On the fruity side of things then, front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of the bread crust there, but you've got the sweeter bread and then the oily bubble where the fruity esters come out of the beer. So let's look at those fruit flavours. Yeah, there is something very familiar about these fruit flavours too. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if this has a little bit of Simcoe and Amarillo in it. There's just, as I say, this strikes me as like quite an old school black IPA, so something like that. But at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get, there's a little touch of like a grapefruity note, like a wet grapefruit, but there's also wee elements of like plum and red fruity character too. As you move further forward, you've got a little bit more kind of, you've got a little bit of a juicy kind of mango-y passion fruit sort of thing. As you reach the front of that middle third of your palate, there's a little bit of like blackcurrant, blackberry, and then, yeah, on top of that, on the front half of the front third of your palate, there's a bit more of an oily orangey character. So like I say, I think this is, Simcoe's very good in black IPAs because it shows you these nice kind of berry flavours, and there's just something setting off my contextual memory here that says it's Simcoe hops. But yeah, the orangey Amarillo, it could be Mosaic right enough, but the kind of more oily character makes me want to say Amarillo. I'd be very curious to know what hops have been used in this one. But anyway, the point is this is a very, very nicely done black IPA, and it's very smooth and drinkable. Could definitely be tempted to have another one of these after I finish filming, but we've still got one beer to go. But yeah, mouthfeel wise then, to round off this review, this beer definitely kind of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. Overall, yeah, it's just quite a smooth mouthfeel, this one. Very nice and very drinkable. But on top of that, you have got a good little bit of bitterness to this beer. You've got some dryness and roastiness from the malt, but that contributes to the bitterness. You've also got the hoppy side of things. It's, yeah, you've got maybe about 40-ish, 40 or 50 IBUs to this beer. It doesn't feel overly bitter, but 40 or 50 IBUs would be good. The malt base has a bit of dryness to it, a bit of smoothness, and also a little bit of sweetness and toastiness. And then you've got that lovely, oily, fruity character. But I think that's everything we need to say about this one, the black IPA. So like I said, it's 6% beer, this one, black IPA, really nicely done. This is review number 5 of 6 that we're going to be doing here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, catch you guys with the next one in a second. Alright guys, so yeah, we got a little bit more food as well. We got some Russian dumplings. So these have got potato, cottage cheese and bacon with them. These should be quite nice, so let's see how they are. Alright, well, let's have a little look at these pierogi, these Russian dumplings then. Very, very curious about this. So, as you can see, inside it's a mixture of cheese and potato and stuff like this. Very nice. Wow. Pretty good, like really nice kind of, it's got a little bit of sweetness to it, but really kind of nice and just savoury. Very good beer fruit, basically, I have to say. Let's try a wee bit with the kind of bacon and stuff on top as well. We'll see. So there you can see, got the bacon on top this time. Looks really nice. Even better, the bacon has this really nice kind of salty type thing to it, and yeah, the cheese, you just get that little bit of nice kind of, the cheese has a little bit of strength to it, which I think is great as well. Lovely dumplings actually. There's one thing I was really looking forward to coming back to Poland, was getting some nice pierogi. There were duck ones here as well, which I'll need to try at some stage. But yeah, I'm going to meet my friend Dominika later, and she'll no doubt point me in the direction of some really nice Polish food once again. But these dumplings, I have to say, are very, very nice. Yeah, if you come here, can't go wrong with these pierogi actually, I have to say that. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the pierogi. Catch you guys in a second with our last beer review. Alright guys, well, time for our 6th and final beer tasting then here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, for the last beer then, we are going to go to the strongest and darkest one of the bunch. So this beer is simply called Baltic Porter. It comes in at 8% ABV, and I think you know what style this one is. So when this beer poured, it had about a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of medium tan head. Yeah, it should be quite an interesting one, this. I was reading the description about this beer, and it says that it's actually a very strong lager, so I do wonder if this is going to be more along the lines of like a very strong Schwarzbier or strong Tamavi, as the Czechs would call it, or if it is actually going to be a porter, because normally a porter is a low temperature fermentation ale, if I remember correctly. So yeah, this is kind of interesting that it says in the description here that it's a lager beer, so yeah. I was a little bit unsure about that, I have to say. But still, anyway, regardless, when it comes to a porter or a Schwarzbier or Tamavi, the appearance of this one is not really surprising. Lovely dark ebony rosewood colour to it. You can see it's got a little bit of a ruby tint to it also, which is quite nice. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the bottom, to the side of the glass there, but a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, and you can see the head has kind of receded down a little bit since the beer was poured. But overall, it does look very, very nice, I have to say, and pretty much what you would expect from the style. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. Oh yeah, I have to say, that does smell very, very nice, and it also is a little bit special to be able to drink a Baltic porter on one of the most famous cities on the Baltic Sea, I have to say. So yeah, this smells very nice. For me, big aroma. This has got the biggest and punchiest aroma of all the beers that we've had so far. So I'm quite glad I saved this one till last. I was actually thinking about having the black IPA last, but then I noticed this one was 8%. I thought it was 6%, but yeah, anyway. So yeah, with this beer, lovely roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust in the backbone. Above that, you know, you're starting to get some nice kind of cake elements out of this one. It smells a little bit like a chocolate muffin, a chocolate brownie, something like this. You've also got the straight up chocolate and cacao nib out of the beer. So for me, there's a sort of 70-ish% cocoa chocolate to it. But there are also little hints of, you know, vanilla and other stuff. One or two little nutty qualities coming out of the beer too. So the way that that goes together, I have to say, is very, very nice. On top of that, you've got a good little bit of brown sugar in this beer. I mean, you get a nice kind of leathery note out of this one, which may well be the indicator of a slightly longer wort boil. But yeah, some nice leathery brown sugars, a little bit of toasty note in there, but also a little bit of a kind of straight up sweet treacle molasses caramel type note. So I do like how that goes together. Yeah, it's quite interesting. You do get a few woody and nutty elements out of this beer the more that you smell of it too, but a proper old school, big Baltic porter, this one. I do like how everything pieces together in this beer. Yeah, I think we'll get more complexity out of this one when we actually taste it than we will from the aroma. So let's have a look at the hoppy side of things. For me, there is a little touch of earthiness to the hoppy side of the beer. You have got a little bit of floral character, also a little bit of grassiness in there, which are of course things you would expect from this style. But on the fruity side of the beer, it's kind of interesting. There's a little bit of a kind of pruny note in there. There's also a little bit of there's a little bit of a kind of pruny side of it. You've also got a little bit of a kind of raisiny or yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of raisin or yeah, there's a wee bit of raisiny sharpness, a bit of juicy plum, and there's a little bit of blackcurrant and blackberry to this beer as well. But aroma-wise, it's very nice. Nothing surprising about it when you consider what style it is, but it gives you everything you would want from the style, which is what you want from these traditional beers. But yeah, let's have a wee look at this one and see what it's all about then. So this is the Baltic Porter, or Porter Bałtycki, I think it would be in Polish, probably butchered that, but this is our 6th and final beer then here at Piwnica Rajców. I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing that right, but let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, na zdrowie. Ooh, that is nice. That's a good Baltic Porter, I will say that straight away. And that's not just because it's 8%, but the flavour in this is really nicely done. This is one of the things I love doing on the channel. I love coming to little more traditional places like this and trying the beer that you're not going to get anywhere else. This is very, very nice. But it's actually, when it comes to the Baltic Porter style, this is one of the kind of sweeter and smoother ones that I've come across, but it's very good. So I have to say, all 6 of the beers we've tried so far have been really good quality in their own right, and they've been very true to the style, and you can't ask for much more than that when you come to a little brew pub like this. But yeah, let's try and break this down and describe it a wee bit more. So the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of smooth, well, it's like a slightly well-fired rye bread crust. That's the backbone of the beer. It has a little bit of dryness to it, but overall it's very smooth. Above that, you start to get a little bit of a kind of cakey layer out of the beer, like a little bit of chocolate brownie, Swedish kladdkaka, this kind of thing. Then above that, you've got more of a kind of straight up rye bready character coming out of the beer. And yeah, that, I have to say, that is really quite nice. Yeah. This is good. So above the kind of bready layer, you start to get the straight up chocolate out of this one. And the chocolate is quite silky and quite smooth. You've got a lovely kind of maybe 70-ish, maybe 80% cocoa chocolate toward the back of that middle third of your palate, and as you move further forward, it just smoothens out and it brightens up a little bit to maybe around 50% cocoa chocolate. So like I say, I really like how that goes together. Then you have a layer. Above that then you've got a layer of nice kind of smooth brown sugar. It's got a little bit of a leathery character to it. There's maybe just a little touch of vanilla underneath that chocolate as well, actually a little bit more of a milky chocolate, particularly the further into the aftertaste you go. But you've got a nice layer of leathery brown sugar, sweet caramel, a little bit of toasty brown sugar. The middle of your palate in this beer is absolutely lovely, I have to say that. So, back third of your palate, the layers are quite similar. You've got the well-fired bread crust, the kind of cakey layer, and also the rye bread, but these are a bit more light and a bit less dense. Then above all of that, you've got the roasty toasty, well-fired character. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together is really quite nice. But yeah, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is nice and tall, but then as you move further forward into the middle third of the palate, it just kind of squashes down and condenses together that little bit more. So yeah, hoppy side of things, a little bit of earthiness in there. Nice little bit of earthiness in there, and as you move further forward, it's a little bit more herbal, and as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's just that little bit more floral, and round the front curve of the tongue, it's a wee bit lighter and more grassy as well. But the Baltic Porter is not the most hop-forward of styles, of course. But let's focus on the front third of your palate and the fruity side of the beer then. So, at the back of that front third of your palate, or the base of the front third of your palate, you've got more of the bread crust, the smooth brown bread. You've got a little bit of a more cakey thing on the border region between front and middle third of your palate, but then the fruits come out. So at the top of that back half, you have a little bit of a kind of plummy sort of thing, bit of prune underneath, and then you've got a wee bit of a kind of dainty and sultana character. But as you move further forward, you get a little bit of a kind of more figgy type quality, and in the front half of that front third of your palate, it's definitely more like black curranty and blackberry like, definitely. But the fruity side of this beer is absolutely lovely. I really do like how this goes together. It gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, very impressed with this Imperial Porter, Baltic Porter. Yeah, we have to call it an Imperial, I think, at about 8% ABV. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied, smooth carbonation, lovely silky mouthfeel. IBU wise, this is probably about 50, maybe 60 IBUs, but it's got quite a bit of dryness to it as well because of the black malt. Lovely smooth bready characters in there, a good little bit of sweetness, and you've also got some nice fruity notes coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, it's a big thumbs up from me. That is our 6th and final beer then here at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, that's that. Catch you guys in a second. So one other thing that I just wanted to show you that I thought was really cool is that just in front of where I was sitting and filming, I've been watching this quite a few times, they have a big screen which shows you drone footage of the Gdańsk old town. So there you can see the Neptune fountain and the entrance to the brewery and the Arthur's court, which is very cool. So yeah, I've been sitting just kind of watching this as I've been reviewing and eating the food and stuff. Very relaxing actually, but very cool drone footage. So pay attention to that if you do come and visit here. It is really, really quite relaxing just to sit and watch it. Alright guys, well that is the end of my time here then
at Piwnica Rajców. So yeah, I had a really nice couple of hours here. Got to try all 6 of the different beers that they had on, tried some Russian dumplings and also the kind of big rye bread thing with the soup inside, both of which were lovely. A big shout out to Olivia and Rennick, who were the 2 that served me when I was here. They were really nice, and yeah, I had a great time. In total, I spent 104 Polish zlotys on the little beer tasting set and the 2 dishes that I had. So that translates to roughly 210 Swedish kroner, 21 euros, somewhere in the region, like, you know, 19 pounds sterling, $22 American, $23 American, something like that. I gave them about a 15% tip, which I think that's about standard in Poland. I honestly don't know, but gave them a little bit anyway. But yeah, I had a really nice time here. All of the beers were very good quality, all very good within their style category, I would say. But potentially the one that stood out to me the most was the Baltic Porter. But the Black IPA and the Cold IPA came in close behind that as well. The lagers were very nice. Like I say, all of the beers were very solid. So cannot fault this place at all. A really nice little setting, actually, and very cool to be in the historic centre of Gdańsk. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this little out and about video. Definitely cool to be filming some things here in Poland, and yeah, in beautiful Gdańsk as well. So a few more videos to come from Gdańsk and from elsewhere. Catch you guys in the next one. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this place if you have been here, and yeah, we might return in the future. You never know. Sláinte, skål, cheers, na zdrowie.